everyone, and welcome to the Royals Rundown podcast presented by Royals Review. If you want to keep up to date on all things Kansas City Royals, whether it be the Hall of Fame news, analysis, rumors, anything under the sun, you got to go check out royalsreview.com. You can also find them on Facebook and X at Royals Review. I am Jacob Milham, joined as always by my illustrious co-host, Jeremy Greco, the blue-haired man. Jeremy, how we doing tonight, man?
Jacob, I need you to understand.
Oh my.
That when I embed a Twitter link, it coming from Twitter gives itself a header that says X, formerly Twitter, because they even know that no one calls it X. No one is going to call it X except for you and Elon Musk. And do you really want to be like Elon Musk?
I guess I'm just licking the boot over here, aren't I? Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So that I have this vivid memory of watching, I think it was from the 70s, it might have been the 80s, this mini series called V, which is about an alien invasion. And it was also an allegory for Nazism and all that good stuff. Oh, as science fiction often is.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was involved in that show was this guy who was a collaborator with the aliens who were invading the Earth, making an old Jewish man who had survived World War II, because they really wanted to drive this point home. This old Jewish man who had survived World War II made him lick his boot. So they were like, symbolism. What if we were just extremely explicit about this?
Yeah, that's what we call heavy-handedness.
We don't. Right? There need be no questions asked once we're done with this scene. You know what we're saying.
Yeah, that point was made nice and clear by that imagery. Hey, listen, we're not here to talk about aliens and all that jazz. As much as I like to talk about aliens and conspiracy theories,
all my notes are about aliens today. I'm in trouble.
Oh, yikes! So this is a little awkward. But hey, listen, we got a lot of things to run down today. First, who are the Royals offering contracts to? We're a little less than a month out from when spring training action starts, not just pitchers and catchers report, but when action starts. And also we got to talk about the Jackson County Stadium update, and we continue our off-season series of ranking the depth, or making our own depth charts, for each Royals position. Jeremy, I don't, before we get to our relief pitchers today on the depth chart, could you explain the next chapter of our depth chart?
Next week we're going to do infielders, and I kind of made the executive decision, and you went along with it, that what we're going to do is we're going to I think we both agree on who the 5 starters are on the infield, including the catcher. Maybe we differ at second base. I would be very surprised if we differ anywhere else. And then, so once we do that, I said, let's come up with 10 guys who are somewhere on the infield, including at least 2 more catchers, because there's a lot of guys. For example, Devin Mann, I expect to kind of both be on both of our lists. Nick Lofton to be on both of our lists. What position do those guys play?
I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you.
Exactly. So I said, we'll define our starters, and then we'll say everybody else is infield depth of some sort. And we wanted at least 3 catchers, because I think the first 2 are obvious. So at least that forces us to dig just a little bit for that third catcher.
Yeah, I like it. So that will be coming at you next week, but you listeners out there won't have to wait much longer for us to get back to 2 podcast episodes a week. Jeremy and I will be picking back up with episodes on Mondays and Thursdays. Once again, that is that's our usual drumbeat. That's our normal during the season drumbeat. That will be on the week of the 19th is what I'm looking at, Jeremy. So Monday the 19th will be an episode, and then Thursday the 22nd will be another episode.
Ooh.
Fun stuff. But hey, let's go ahead and let's keep the news rolling. So the Royals, it was yesterday, so Tuesday. I do know my days of the week. Yes,
Hey,
Jeremy, I
he
promise.
learns.
On Tuesday, the Royals announced that they have agreed to terms on 2024 contracts with a handful of players. Fans should know all these names. They listed off Daniel Lynch IV, Kyle Isbell, Vinny Pasquantino, Michael Massey, Alec Marsh, John McMillan, Tyler Gentry, Will Klein, and Matt Sauer. Now, Jeremy, there are a lot of names omitted from that list,
Yeah.
such as Bobby Witt Jr. stands out, Michael Garcia, MJ Melendez, the like. So there's still some negotiations going on behind closed doors, it seems.
I guess so. Sure. It's going to amount to a couple $100,000 one way or
Yeah.
the other, in total, not per player, most likely. So maybe
Hey.
Bobby Witt Jr. could make a case. I think mostly Bobby Witt Jr.'s best option, if he wants to make more money in 2024, is going to be signing some sort of extension.
Correct.
But I don't know how likely or not likely that is to happen.
It's him not being on the list is giving me some sort of hope that they signed him to an extension before the season begins. And that would be a great way to start off the season, in my opinion, Jeremy.
Yeah.
That'd be the news.
Like you said, once he signs, if he signs a 1-year deal for this year, signs to his contract for this year, which the Royals would retain control over him, but it would be just like because with the rookie deals, what they're signing is if he signs a guaranteed contract for this year, it doesn't guarantee him any money next year.
Right.
They could just cut him at that point. So it's kind of a little bit complicated in that the Royals basically kind of have team options on their rookies. And so that was kind of where I was going with that. But yeah, so if he signs that, then I would think that the extension is not happening anytime soon.
Yep, and that would be very frustrating. But we'll just keep tabs on it. That's all we can do. Speaking of keeping tabs, there was a big update in the Jackson County legislature this past week. Ooh, they overrode county executive. I keep on calling him county commissioner because that's what I'm used to. Apparently, he's county executive and Royals Hall of Famer Frank White. He vetoed their motion. Let's see, it was last week now to put the 3/8 sales tax extension on the ballot. Jackson County legislature came back and overrode that veto, and they are putting the stadium sales tax measure before voters in April. April 2nd is the date that we are hearing so far. Jeremy, I don't know about you, but I am pleased by how this all played out after Frank White's veto, because we were hearing early on that, hey, the veto is going to stand. They don't have the votes for it, things like that. And then come back when they got to put where their money where their mouth is. It was a 7-2 vote to override his veto. Like that's a big swing on such a small legislature. What do you think?
I don't know. It's all just been such a giant mess. I'm glad to be moving on to the next step and hopefully getting this done with soon. I do want to kind of walk back a little bit to last week's episode when we were like, oh, what is Frank White doing? Blah, blah, blah. He wants $25 million. And then we got some more news kind of after we recorded that. And so Frank White's issues didn't seem quite so crazy once we saw those kind of laid out. So I did want to walk that back a little bit and be like, okay, this is what happens kind of when you're trying to react to the news on a schedule, and we weren't ready. We have to record when we have to record.
Correct.
At some point we have to say, well, we've got all the information we're going to have for now, and then we'll come back later. So we're coming back later, and I'm saying I changed my mind. I actually think the veto was a good idea. I know that at least 2 people said they were going to make statements about why they were deciding to override the veto. And I didn't see those. So I was curious as to what changed their minds on that. But, hopefully this stuff is all going to get worked out eventually. And Frank White's issues, I think, were legitimate. I also think that just because the veto got overridden doesn't mean that they don't get addressed. Like the big one for me was the enforceable community benefits agreement.
Yes.
And that absolutely could and should still happen. Maybe they have a little bit less negotiating leverage without the county to kind of back their play for whatever that ends up looking like. But so all hope is not lost for those of you who are like, man, I really wish that Frank White had gotten what he was looking for there. And of course, I know a lot of you have. I don't live in Jackson County, so I don't know much about his politics. Again, I think I've said this before, outside of the stadium stuff. And I know a lot of people have a lot of issues with him, and I get it. That's great. I don't have anything I can add to that. So if his veto getting overridden made you happy just because it was a Frank White loss, cool.
Yeah, I'm very much over all this right now. I'm just talking about and keeping tabs on it because we have to. It's a big enough thing where we need to keep tabs on it. We're talking about. I could never have imagined the Royals leaving Kauffman Stadium, and I know sports teams get new stadiums all the time, but that's just how it hasn't gone in Kansas City. It's always been Arrowhead and Kauffman. So this is really a historic thing.
Well, except for when it was municipal.
True, but I don't think my parents were even born when they left.
That's because you're a baby.
Yes, I am a baby. I am absolutely a baby on that. So it's however you want to take it, positive, negative, whatever. It's still the next step.
At least I think I said last week and probably the week before, I'm just ready to be done with this. Let's move on. Yeah. So, and that's what's happening.
Exactly. Well, and we are going to move on with the podcast episode. And it is, so last week we did the depth at starting pitcher.
Yep.
We agreed on a lot of the names. The rankings did differ a lot. But we ranked out the top 10 depth options in the Royals organization. And if you can give me a moment here, I forgot to pull up our responses from Spotify podcasts.
Oh yeah, you better do that.
I know, right? Well, I think about that because I asked folks in our Spotify exclusive poll, grade the Royals organizational depth at starter, because it's been a really shaky spot for years and years in the Kansas City Royals organization, and
Since got at least 2015.
Yeah, at the very least. And you could blame bad drafting and bad development on that. But we got a bevy of responses on that poll. 22% of voters said they gave it an A, 11% a B, but most of our respondents, 66%, gave him a C or a D. Those two were tied down there. So
not really sure how you look at this rotation and this pitching depth and you give it a D.
Yeah.
Like a C, excuse me, an A doesn't make a lot of sense to me either. A B minus or anywhere from a B minus to a C, I think makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. And then also on Spotify, you can respond to our Q&As, and we read your responses on air in the following episode. So we asked y'all, is there any starter you want to see move to the bullpen next season? There's a lot of the number 4, number 5 spots kind of feel up for grabs. We listed off Lyles, Lynch, even Singer as possible bullpen candidates at some point. Royal Rupert said, no guaranteed spot for the 4th and 5th starter. Give me a battle royale for the last 2 spots. Everyone else to the bullpen and minors. Listen, I think that's a very apt response considering WWE's Royal Rumble is this weekend. So it's an over-the-top rope battle royale who's actually going to be in the majors for the Royals this year. And then Luke 5747 says, Lyles seems like the perfect answer. He can pitch long innings anytime the game is out of control or piggyback on an opener. It might actually make people not ignore his starts and his starts being dumb. I think dumb is a pretty one word. It's pretty appropriate to put up Lyles' 2023 season, right, Jeremy?
Yeah. I think that fits.
It certainly does. And on this episode that you're listening to, Go check it out on Spotify.
Game day internship with the Omaha Storm Chasers is the perfect opportunity for a college student interested in exploring a career in the sports industry. Storm Chasers interns have the chance to work in almost every aspect of game day and event operations at Warner Park, while gaining knowledge about the inner workings of minor league baseball. There's no better way to learn and grow while discovering your passions and goals than becoming a part of our Chasers family. To learn more about internship opportunities with the Storm Chasers, head to omahastormchasers.com or email Ania Tate, ANIYAT, at omahastormchasers.com.
Everyone get on your feet, stir up the storm, we're family.
Baseball season is on its way, and there's no better place to spend the summer than with the Quad Cities River Bandits. From the Royals' top prospects on the field to a jam-packed promotional schedule, the fun never stops at Modern Woodman Park. Can't miss any of the action? Ticket packages are on sale now, with full season plans starting at less than $5 per game. Season ticket holders enjoy premium perks, including guaranteed giveaways, team store discounts, a full season parking pass, and so much more. For more information, visit riverbandits.com or call 563-324-3000.
So we can hear from you and interact with you further. We are going to keep our rankings going with relievers this time. Now, for starters, we did go 10 deep, and we are going 15 deep on the infielders. We went 15 deep on the relievers as well, because there's a lot of relievers on this 40-man roster. There's a lot of battles that are going to be had, and while we did have a lot of the same names, we had some pretty big changes in rankings. So,
Sure did.
Jeremy, why don't you go and start us off? Who is your number one?
All right, so my number one is the presumed closer, the closer presumptive, Will Smith. And of course,
The rapper?
No, not
The movie mogul.
Huh?
The movie mogul.
No.
The Fresh Prince?
No.
Slap artist.
No.
Oh, okay.
And not your friend down the street, not the Dodgers position player. I can't remember if he's a center fielder or a catcher. I think he's a catcher.
I couldn't remember either.
No, the left-handed reliever who's gone to the World Series 3 years and won the World Series 3 years in a row with 3 different teams, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want, you could believe that bodes well for the Royals. Of course, you could also assume that he gets traded at the deadline to whoever's going to win the World Series. And of course, you came with what I guess would be the erstwhile closer, James MacArthur.
Yes, I did. So, listen, I don't think there's anyone who's risen their stock more since their Royals debut than James MacArthur. Everyone remembers his atrocious debut. Like, it was really, really bad. But at the end of it all, to close out September, he was the Royals' best reliever. He has the tools and the arsenal that it seems like Brian Sweeney and his crew are leaning towards. So I am with his age and with his lack of mileage, I guess is the word, on his arm, I am looking at him as the eventual closer. I do think that Will Smith gets the most save opportunities for these Royals, but I am curious to see how that plays out. So we just had him switched. Honestly, you had Will Smith first and James MacArthur second. I had James MacArthur second and Will Smith second. Is there anything else that you want to say on either one of those two?
Yeah, I just went with Will Smith just because of kind of the pedigree and the fact that I expect him to start the year as the closer. I think James MacArthur as the number one guy makes a lot of sense. I just don't think he's going to get quite as high leverage opportunities as I expect Will Smith to get early on. And so if the Royals are going to be good in 2024, it's probably going to have to start with Will Smith being good, or else they might find themselves in a hole early on.
Yeah, that is. And looking back on it, as bad as the bats were to start off 2023, the bullpen was a close second, and the bullpen took them out of a lot of games. So we talked about that with Zimborski on the episode from a couple of weeks ago, like the negative WAR projection for the Royals before all these free agent and trade acquisitions, yeah, it was going to be pretty ugly in the major league bullpen. So keeping going down the rankings, I put Nick Anderson number 3 on my rankings. He was one of the players that the Royals traded for from the Atlanta Braves. They avoid so he is arbitration eligible. They signed him to a 1-year, $1.575 million contract, and honestly, he was really good last year for Atlanta. He is 32, so it's not like he's a spring chicken or nothing. But coming from the Tampa Bay Rays organization, going to the Braves, he put up some pretty good numbers. So I'm expecting big things from him in 2024. Who did you have number 3?
I've got Chris Stratton. Man, the reason
free agent.
Yeah, the reason I put Chris Stratton ahead of Nick Anderson is health. Nick Anderson has been very good, but he's struggled with health. And again, Stratton's getting paid more, as you noted. I think it's about $1.5 million for Anderson. Stratton's getting, I think, 4.5, or might not be that much, but it's more than 1.5.
Exactly. So, well more.
Yeah, so they're paying him more, so I again expect him to be in higher leverage situations if the Royals are going to be good. Is all the stuff that I just said about Will Smith.
Yeah. An interesting tidbit about Chris Stratton. He has not had a negative FWAR season since his debut season. He's always been an above replacement level reliever. He has bounced around between his fair share of teams, but he did have a career year in 2023. It's kind of a
thing relievers do.
Yeah, relief arms, whether it be trades, waivers, just outright free agency, they bounce around a good amount. And he's no different. He has been in the league for quite a while. He's going to be 33 this year, but he's coming off a 3.53 FIP, 3.92 ERA season with the who was he? He was with the Rangers. He was with the Rangers last year.
Well, he was with the Cardinals and then the Rangers.
Oh, thank you. So, yeah, it's hard to knock Chris Stratton, and I did have him as my number 4 option as well, and I'd echo many of your sentiments regarding him. Who is your number 4?
So that's when I came with John McMillan.
Oh, yeah.
Who I think a lot of people are expecting a lot from. Again, I just kind of put him below the other 3 just because he had that really impressive debut, couple of outings, and then he was hurt for the rest of the year. So we just haven't seen enough of him at the big league level to know, is he going to stick or not? I predicted that he would make the opening day roster. I did my roster projection on Royals Review last weekend. So I think he's going to make the opening day roster. I think he's going to be valuable, but I gotta put guys in places, and so he ends up being my 4th guy.
Yeah, and I think his only knock is we only saw him for 4 innings last year.
Right.
Like, it's not like we got a good look at his sample size, but honestly, I think it was his second batter up in his MLB debut. He gave up a home run, and that was it. That was the only run. That was the only hit that he gave up. He had 4 one-inning appearances, no walks, 2 strikeouts in each one. Like, he looked every bit of a major league reliever in those 4 innings, and I think we are expecting a lot of things from him. People do forget he is going to be, I think he's going to be 26 on the when opening day comes. People point at where he started at last year, so low in the minor league system. He started in low A and made his MLB debut in the same year, which is impressive. The guy's been cooking for a minute now. He's just been injured. He was a part of that 2020 draft class, which got affected by the lost COVID season and things like that. So John McMillan is going to be a guy to watch in 2024. And yeah, I had him after Chris Stratton. So the number 5 guy, which I think, in my opinion, the Royals will go with a closer by committee approach to start off the year. That puts him on the fringes of that committee, I feel like. I talked to him, I want to say it was earlier this month. I talked to John McMillan for an interview on Kings of Kaufman, and he said that he was doing good. He got shut down after some forearm tightness. That's not bothering him anymore. And yeah, it sounds like he's ready to go for 2024. So looking forward to him, man.
Yeah. So you had him at number 5, and then my number 5, then and this might be a little bit of a stretch, but I went ahead and put Will Klein, who I think is the number 1 guy in the minor leagues for the Royals this year. As far as relief pitchers go, he was in AAA last year. He pitched in the Futures game. He is very close to ready to go, if not already there. I don't, again, expect him to crack the opening day roster simply because, well, they just added 3 veterans, and those guys kind of have guaranteed spots. And you have MacArthur and McMillan, who've already debuted. You have a few other guys who've already debuted. So he's somebody's going to have to falter, and he's going to have to pitch lights out if he's going to make the roster out of spring training. But if he doesn't pitch for the big league team this year, I would be just absolutely flabbergasted. They added him to the 40-man roster over the offseason to make sure he didn't get picked up in the Rule 5 draft. And I think that he's got a bright future ahead of him. And I got a little overexcited maybe, so I put him a little too high maybe, but that's why he's there.
Well, yeah, and I'll talk about my quote unquote concerns regarding Will Klein when I get to him in my rankings.
Okay.
But I do think the 5 spot for him is a great ceiling in 2024. I think he has the stuff to be, a great setup guy in the MLB roster, but I'll talk about more of those concerns later on. This might sound a little hypocritical as I talk about the concerns of Will Klein, but I do have Carlos Hernandez as my number 6 guy. Most of that is buoyed off of, when he looked really, really good in 2023, he was really, really good. Like, it was, I don't disagree that the Royals should have traded him at the trade deadline when they had the chance. He regressed down the stretch. He faltered a lot. I don't know if that was mental or physical. I want to say with how quickly it happened, I do want to say something, mentally slipped if I do have to give an opinion on that. But I think he still has some of the best stuff in this bullpen. He just has to work on harnessing it a little bit more. So that's probably his ceiling rather than his floor. But I'm interested to see what Carlos Hernandez does in 2024. Who do you have in your number 6 spot?
For my number 6, I got Nick Anderson. That's where I put him.
Okay.
Because of the effectiveness, I didn't want to put him any lower. Because of the injuries, I didn't want to put him any higher.
Got it. Makes sense. And then number 7, you put Carlos Hernandez.
Yep. And it's funny because I don't have him cracking the opening day roster, just because I feel like there's 2 guys lower than him that I do have, or 3 guys lower than him that I do have in that roster. One of them is going to be Matt Sauer, who's the Rule 5 pick, and then I've got 2 lefties, and I think the Royals are going to want at least 2 lefties in that bullpen. So that's kind of why I think he might start the year in AAA, also because he did struggle at the end of last year, and whether it was mental or physical, might be nice to give him kind of a reset at AAA. But I do think he has a chance to compete for an opening day roster spot. And I think if he does go to the minor leagues, he might, I'll say he probably would be the first guy up in case of injury, or, they like to, and every team does this, but especially the Royals, we know because we watch them, like to shuttle guys back and forth between the minor leagues and the big leagues to keep the bullpen fairly well rested. And so if he goes to the minors, he'll be one of those guys. And actually, if he opens the year on the big league roster, I would expect him to be a guy who goes down sometimes to get somebody else up, just because he's got those options.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. Moving on with the list, he was my number 7, your number 8. I put Steven Cruz there, and you have Cruz making the opening day roster. Is that correct?
No.
Okay. So Listen, there's a lot to like about Cruz. There's a lot of shortcomings in his game as well. He did make his MLB debut last year. He had 10 appearances, 4 starts, mostly as an opener, if I recall correctly. The strikeout stuff was there. The control issues were also there. So that's not too great. And he did struggle in AAA last year. So I'm not completely sold on, he's just going to come into 2024 and be great. But what has value in MLB in the bullpen is stuff. And like, what do you do at an elite rate? And Steven Cruz, it's a toss up for me between him and Will Klein having the best fastball in the Royals system right now. Fangraphs gives his fastball a 70 grade on an 80 scale, so that's pretty hard to beat, Jeremy.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think on Cruz, man?
I think, like you said, the stuff is there. He's just, again, like you also said, he has the control issues. He also didn't pitch a lot at the big league level last year, though. And he's also a guy that did kind of have a rocky couple first outings, but then settled in for his last couple outings. So I think there's some potential there. I see a lot of Carlos Hernandez and how I expect him to kind of be used, where he kind of loses the roster battle because he can be demoted and because he's not a lefty.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. There's a lot of right-handed fireballers in this bullpen right now. So Cruz is at your number 8. He is at my number 7. Going down to my number 8 is your good friend Josh Taylor, who also, if I recall correctly, I don't think Josh Taylor does have 2 MLB options remaining, so there is some flexibility there. That my ranking of him assumes that he is healthy and ready to go for 2024. We have not gotten an update on that, but man, it's hard to disagree with his 31.3% strikeout rate as a reliever. I'm really hoping that he can hit the ground running in 2024.
Yep. And so he's your number 8. My number 8 is Steven Cruz.
Yep.
And then my number 9 is also your number 9. It's the first time we agree.
I know, right?
In this whole list.
Yeah.
We both have Jake Brent's number 9.
Mm-hmm. And I want to, you talked about them having lefties in the bullpen and that kind of being a staple, but also similar to Taylor, Brent's has health issues. We haven't seen him in a long time. What put him at number 9 for you?
Just because, holy crap, I picked 8 right-handed pitchers to start this. I got to pick a lefty. He's the best lefty they've got right now.
Yeah,
I trust him just a tiny bit more than Josh Taylor, who does come in one step below, because I do think that Josh Taylor has had a variety of injuries, whereas Brent's had the one Tommy John surgery that has just taken a long time to come back from. And so hopefully when Jake Brent's comes back, that's it. He's good now. Whereas Josh Taylor, even if he's ready to go at the beginning of the year, I don't really trust his health to hold out. So that's kind of why that order went in there. Plus, it's hard to argue with 100 from the left side, right?
Oh yeah, it really is. And I think fans understandably forget how good Jake Brent's was in his debut. He made his debut back in 2021, and he was at that time it was alongside Barlow and Stalmont, but he was like the setup guy for those two. A 3.66 ERA with a 4.23 FIP. He just had some great strikeout stuff, a wicked fastball, and I just don't know. He suffered a lat strain in late August when he was trying to make some rehab appearances. So we haven't gotten a good look to see if that velocity is back in his arm, and I'm going to be watching him closely during spring training. But yeah, that was the first time we agreed on this whole list at number 9 with Jake Brent.
And I think your ranking too, probably, but mine does, hinge on him being healthy and being able to hit 100, If he's down to like 95 and completely changes his repertoire, then maybe he doesn't deserve to be ranked this high.
Agreed. So let's see here. Let's go ahead and hear who's at your number 10.
So at number 10, I've got Josh Taylor, who we've already talked about, and I
Yep.
just put him this low because of the health stuff primarily. The performance wasn't good last year, but he barely pitched in 2 years with a variety of injuries, like we mentioned. The strikeouts are there, which is why he is still on this list, and he's not any lower than he is.
Right.
He's still ahead of some people. So I hope he succeeds. I know I've spent the whole offseason ragging on him, and I have also, just for the record, walked that back a bit once I realized I had completely whiffed on the strikeout rates and how good they were. So here's hoping that the strikeouts stick around and the walks and the home runs go away, and he becomes a very effective reliever for the Royals.
Yes, here's hoping on that one. So
this is where you've got at number 10 Will Klein.
Yes, yeah. So I put him closer to the floor that I foresee him. So he's got a lot of variance for me. I could have made the case to put him as high as 5, which you did, but I want to say that 10 is a little bit closer. You already talked about his roster flexibility, if you will, how he has a whole lot of options remaining, and the Royals can move him around a lot. The walks are still a big concern for me. They really are. I remember, it was 2021 now. That first season that he came on. I'm pulling up his stats right now, but yeah, he had a 15.48 K over 9, which is just insane. And then he followed that up next year, still with an 11 K over 9, but his walks spiked 10.5 over 9. Like, it's been, and those issues kind of popped up again in AAA. He had 12.6 K over 9 with a 6.43 walks over 9. So if you're striking out folks at that rate, I feel like that is a acceptable ratio at the minor league level, but I'm concerned, okay, are they going to take more advantage of his control issues, they being opposing batters? I want to see him get some more seasoning at the AAA level. He didn't even spend all of last year in Omaha. So I love him. I think that he is going to be a very, very good arm out of the bullpen. Just think he needs a little bit more time before we can rely on him,
Yeah, absolutely.
And let's see, did we, you know what? We agreed again.
Yep.
On number 11.
For the second and final time.
Yes, second and final time. Emphasis on "and" there. Matt Sauer, you already talked about how he was the Rule 5 draft pickup, so he does have to stay on the 26-man roster, or there's some rules where he could go back to his former team and things like that. But what do you like about Sauer out of the bullpen, or what are your concerns?
So, I like that a lot of people like him.
Yeah.
I like that the Royals kind of identified their guy. They went out and got him. They said, we think he's going to do good things. He's got an incredible strikeout rate in the minors, though he's only pitched as high as AA, but almost always double digits. His first few years when he was 18, 19, 20, he hadn't got there, but once he hit 22, because we did miss that 2020 minor league season. Yep. Double-digit strikeouts per 9 all the time, including, well, that was only in one outing. He did have a 22.5 K per 9 because he struck out a bunch of guys there in that 2-inning appearance in A+ in 2023, high A, as they call it other places. I put him not any higher than I did because, hey, he was available in the Rule 5 draft. Yeah. And usually guys that are available there's a reason for it. If he were a surefire, no doubt guy, he would be on the 40-man roster of the Yankees. Which is the team the Royals claimed him from. So, it's one of those, it's like, can the Royals find something with him and make him succeed, as they did with MacArthur, it seems, as they did with Cole Reagans? Or is he going to be a guy that hangs out for a little while and go, well, that didn't work. Have fun in New York.
It's hard to fault the Royals for at least trying on this. I was surprised that his frame is very similar to what the Royals are looking for in their new pickups. He's 6'4", 230. And that is the Royals are pivoting away from the guys built like Max Castillo and looking more for, these bigger bodied, taller relievers. And I do want to point out he was a starter in the Yankees system.
Yeah.
He wasn't a reliever. So we don't have a whole lot of data on how he does in short inning appearances. But like you said, as a starter,
those strikeout rates as a starter,
are very interesting. So I'm looking forward to getting some good data on him out of the bullpen, and I want to see a little bit more about his pitch arsenal. My understanding is he has pretty immaculate control at times when he's on, and he's just got a good fastball, slider, changeup arsenal. So interested to see what he does there. Moving on to number 12, I have Angel Serpa. I've talked about Serpa before on the podcast. I'm just not super high on him anymore. I don't think the stuff is there, and I don't think his control is good enough to keep him on a major league roster. He is still on the 40-man roster, but I wouldn't be surprised if, let's say, the Royals make a trade or they want to go out and sign another free agent. I wouldn't be surprised to see them move on from Serpa, but it is hard to ignore that he is still very, very young. I'm trying to find his age here real quick. He's still 24, made his debut back in 21. So he's got a lot of control, like financial control, but I'm just not high on him anymore. Number 12, you have Austin Cox.
Yeah, and Austin is a guy who would be higher if he was healthy.
Yeah.
He's not right now. Probably will not be healthy to start the year. It's funny, you actually have Cox one step lower, and I have Serpa one step lower.
Yeah.
And I think that's because they're kind of interchangeable at this point, where like neither one of them really belong on the roster at the beginning of the year. Cox because he's injured, Serpa because you said he doesn't have the stuff, he doesn't have the control. I know that a lot of people were just in love with him after he made his debut. And I'll admit, I was impressed. I was ready to see more of him, and then he got hurt. But it's not been good since the debut.
It is not.
He did have he had 3 more games in 2022. But he was very mediocre in 2023. Actually, his control looks pretty good. He only had 1.69 walks.
Let me go and walk that back a little bit. But yeah, go ahead.
But the strikeouts aren't there. The stuff isn't there. I mean, his fastball on the 80 grade scale, according to Fangraphs, they think it's a 40, so a below average fastball. It's really hard to succeed with a below average fastball. And Austin Cox had some level of success last year. So I think when he is healthy, we can expect him to at least be a reasonable middle reliever. I'm not sure Angel Serpa brings that anymore. So that's kind of where I'm at with those two guys.
I don't disagree with any of those points. I do think Cox will probably end up having more value long term because he is a lefty out of the bullpen. He was a career starter in the minor league system, so he can be a long relief guy. The Royals did have him on the non-roster invite list, which I thought was interesting. It seems like a really fast recovery if he would already be ready to go in spring training after tearing his ACL.
Maybe he's got some of those Mahomes Salvi genes where he instantly heals.
Yeah, maybe so.
That X factor.
He just has it. Okay, he just has it.
I meant like the mutant X factor, like Wolverine. But yeah,
that
too.
Whoops. Awkward.
Healing factor. That's what I was thinking of.
But yeah, honestly, Cox was a pretty big surprise last year. I thought that healthy, he was going to head into 2024 and compete for that number 5 spot starter kind of role. in the Royals rotation. I don't think that as much anymore after they added 2 free agent arms.
I
Do you
don't.
agree?
I don't think Austin Cox is a starter anymore. I think he settled into that reliever role, and I think that's where he's going to be for the foreseeable future, unless some other team gets their hands on him and is like, we think we can up your stuff some, because his stuff just isn't there for the rotation.
No, it really isn't. So let's go ahead and get down to 14 and 15, where we both had 2 different players.
We went completely different directions.
Yeah, we really did. Who was your number 14 and why?
So I went with Walter Pennington,
Okay.
who is a reliever in AAA. And I just kind of went with him because I was like, well, who's close?
Yeah.
Who could pitch in the big leagues next year? And he's the guy, I think, after Will Klein, that makes a lot of sense. He's another lefty, 6'2", 205. Fangraphs doesn't have anything on him.
Nothing.
So he does strike out some guys. He's not unreasonable last year for AAA. He pitched not the whole year in AAA. He did start, it looks like, in AA.
Mm-hmm.
But he had a 9.44 K per 9, which isn't bad. His walks were a little high at 4.57 per 9. But, the ERA was 3.69. The 4.11 FIP said he wasn't terribly, lucky.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what to expect from him. I don't know if he's like a long-term guy who's going to make it for a while in the big leagues, or a guy who gets a cup of coffee and then has to find a different job. But we're kind of near the bottom of the list here, so that's the direction I went with him.
And that's just how the bullpen cookie crumbles around Major League Baseball. For my number 14, I will admit, I was surprised that you didn't have Jonathan Bolden on your list. I do understand why.
I looked at Jonathan Bolden and I said he's a starter.
Okay.
I think of Jonathan Bolden as a starter. I think he's going to start the year in AAA as a starter and be a guy who can potentially step into the rotation due to injuries or ineffectiveness. I do not see him relieving for the big league team.
Okay.
So that's why I left him off the list.
Gotcha. Absolutely understandable. I put him as a reliever simply of how they used him in 2023. But that was like two appearances. So that's hardly going to deem their course regarding Jonathan Bolden. We were talking about James MacArthur raising his stock from where he went. I don't know of a guy whose stock has fallen more in the past probably 2 years than Jonathan Bolden. He was part of that 2018 draft class. And as much as we talk about how bad that draft class was for the Royals, Bolden just made his MLB debut he was like almost 27 when he made his debut. Injuries had to do with that, but even when he was healthy on the mound at times, he wasn't a lights out guy. He had plenty of struggles. He spent all of 2022 in AA and started out there in 2023. But like you said, he's been a starter in his minor league career. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him go back down to AAA Omaha. And like Sarah, I wouldn't be surprised if the Royals ended up DFAing him at some point for another player. So he is my number 14. He's not on your list at all, making him the only pitcher on the 40-man roster that did not make your list either way. So I thought that was interesting, but it's hard to fault you there.
I wanted to with Pennington and with this next guy I've got on my list, I wanted to kind of highlight a couple guys that I think people aren't thinking about, don't know about. So, when Pennington gets promoted, I think he might make his debut this year at some point. They'll be like, oh yeah, I did hear about that guy. I am aware of him. I'm excited now, instead of being like, who's that?
Yeah, that's always the fun part about MLB debuts and call-ups and stuff like that. So in that same vein, who is your number 15 and why?
So my number 15, and I think like your number 15, probably won't see the big league roster this year.
Yeah.
I've got Eric, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I'm going to say Sarantola.
I believe that's how you say it, yeah.
He is a right-handed reliever, 23 years old, 6'5", 225, another big boy. Throws it pretty hard. Fangraphs has him with an above-average fastball, an above-average slider, a slightly above-average changeup, no command. So that's it's a reliever profile, if you ask me. He started the year last year in high A, and that's where he spent most of the year. He did get a chance to move up to double A, where he actually made a couple starts, which is weird because he was not a starter in high A.
It was odd.
And so I think his future's probably as a reliever. The numbers at double A, even though it is, again, a small sample size, 14 innings, were eye-popping for me. 12.21 K per nine, or the way you like to look at it, 35.2 strikeout rate. Percentage there. Didn't walk a lot of guys, actually, once he got to double A. 3.21 BB per nine is not terrible, especially with that strikeout rate. So that's like a 4-to-1 almost strikeout to walk rate. That will play.
That will absolutely play.
And then he had a 1.93 ERA, a 2.48 FIP. Again, it's a small sample size. Again, we're at the bottom of this list. And again, I just wanted to highlight a guy that, like, maybe you could get a little excited about him. I will admit that I was kind of tipped off to him by our friends over at Farm to Fountains. They had a little draft thing that they did where they were drafting top Royals prospects. Sarantola made that list.
Oh, nice.
So I was like, okay, who's this guy? I got to look him up. And when I looked up the numbers, I was like, okay, I'm interested. Let's talk. So again, I do not believe we will see him pitch for the Royals in 2024, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him in 2025, and I wouldn't be surprised if he succeeded.
There you go. I like it. Yeah, same. You absolutely got me right in my number 15 spot. I just wanted to highlight a reliever out there. I picked Cooper McKeon. He's currently in high A, but I am looking mostly at his work in low A Columbia. He was next level in Columbia, I will say. Granted, he's 22. That's just slightly above the average age there. But he didn't start playing professional ball till 21, so he's moving a little quicker. He had 11 saves in 31 games for the Fireflies. Really, really good stuff. You talked about the walk to strikeout rate. There, he had a 5.3 strikeout to walk rate, which was great.
Ooh.
Now, he made a late season jump up to high A. He got roughed up a little bit. That's understandable. But I watched a few of his saves there in Columbia, and he's got really good mound presence. I feel like he is going to be a guy that more Royals fans should keep an eye out for in 2025, probably. I wouldn't be surprised if he moves up into like a top 50 prospect role later on this year. But there were some other guys that I wanted to talk with you about who weren't on the list and why. Christian Chamberlain has made some headlines this offseason. He pitched for the folks over at Tread and had some really unique metrics for them from the left side, from spin and velocity and things like that. But I do want to say this about Christian Chamberlain. So he takes the walk concerns to a whole new level. Jeremy. He's a 23-year-old reliever in AAA, and he had a 12.95 K over 9 and a 10.36 walk over 9 last year. The control is concerning, to say the least. His 6.06 FIP is not what you want to see out of the bullpen either. I think that he has good stuff. I think that he has great stuff. But we need to see a little bit more control, and he is a non-roster invite, so we will be able to see some of that. Did you look at him at all for your list, or
no? I view him as another guy that I looked at, and I said he's a starter. I'm not considering him for this list.
I will say, for a long time after the Royals traded for him, I got him confused all the time with Chandler Champlain instead of Christian Chamberlain. So Chandler Champlain is a starting pitcher, and then Christian is a relief pitcher. And I got caught up mixing up the two.
Maybe I got confused.
Oh yeah,
Christian Chamberlain.
Yeah,
you said he's a reliever.
He is a reliever.
Yeah, I got it confused with Chandler Champlain. I did not look at him. But I would have looked at those walk numbers like you said, and I would have said, I'll go look for somebody else.
Yeah. Yep. So that's why he missed mine. Interested to see veteran on a. It seems like the Royals are always going to have some guys that you sign on minor league deals, and they pop up in majors again. Dan Altavilla should be someone interesting to watch. He's been out for a couple of seasons due to injury, so don't really know what the Royals are getting there. Someone that I've seen people either know who he is or just absolutely love him, Jonah Dipoto, is up there in AAA Omaha, has a pretty strong cult following. If you follow what I'm putting down there. And the only knock on him is that folks, knock him around a good amount. His 21.6 home run to fly ball ratio is absurd.
Did you just say that the only downside to the pitcher was that he gives up a lot of hits?
Yeah. He does.
Okay.
What?
I mean...
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. It is a Wednesday, y'all. I apologize there.
The only bad part is that he doesn't get outs. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it, huh? Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry. But no, we talked about Alec Marsh's concerns giving up home runs, and Dipoto has that.
That's what you mean by knocked around, is that he gives up home runs. When I think knocked around, I think just hits all over the place.
And lastly, Preston Farr over at Farm to Fountains talked about him earlier on this year. Andrew Hoffman is currently a starter who I think should move to the bullpen. Looking at some of his metrics on Prospects Live, he has some really good stuff. It's just he does have some control issues later on in games, and I am curious if the Royals will evaluate moving him to the bullpen. He is on their top 30 prospect list right now. I forget where he ranks out though. He has good stuff. Just man, oh man, sometimes it is hard to watch those late inning appearances. I thought he was on the top 30, but I must be mistaken. Jeremy, any closing thoughts before we finish up on these rankings?
No, not really. About the relievers, I did. I'm gonna steal the wheel here for a sec.
Fine. That's fine.
I did want to just kind of briefly at least get your thoughts, because I know my thoughts and I think I've shared them, but I wanted to get your thoughts on kind of the rumors that are kind of like David Lesky's a little bit like they might sign someone, and Max Reaper wrote for Royals Review, I think this morning, where he said, guys aren't signed, so the Royals might be able to get a discount. Can they go out there and get anyone? I do want to note that like half of Max's list was like domestic abusers, and I'm just like, are there not other free agents out there? I thought there were at least a handful of guys who hadn't hit people.
I think that's a good filter, if you will, on your free agent options if they have or haven't committed domestic abuse, or at least had allegations as such. No, it was. So I remember Lesky's piece for the most part was covering third base specifically.
Yeah, that's where he thought that it would make the most sense for the Royals to make a move. And I have argued the same point, that I think Michael Garcia has more value probably to some other team as a shortstop than he does to the Royals as a third baseman. And if they could go get a third baseman, I know I'm stealing again, but Lesky focused on Matt Chapman. Yeah. And if you told me I could have Matt Chapman and Edward Cabrera instead of Michael Garcia, I'd probably do it.
Yeah.
Just saying. But
I would too. I really would. I love Michael Garcia at third base. He made that transition seamlessly. But Matt Chapman is also an elite defensive third baseman. The bat, is a concern at times, but it's only a concern because of the money he's likely asking for. I think Lesky and some other contract projections I've seen out there is like a 5-year, $100 million deal for Chapman. And I just don't know if the Royals would go out and say, okay, we have a pretty solid infield. Let's go out and spend that money.
Yeah, I might not spend that much. I know
I don't think
I'm
I
big
would.
on the whole, like, I don't care how much money you spend because it's not mine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think anybody who tries to argue that, like, oh, that'll handicap the team's spending, like, you don't know. You don't know how much they can spend. You don't know how much they'll choose to spend. So just like those kinds of projections they're silly enough in football where at least they have the salary cap.
Mm-hmm.
And then people are like, they don't have any salary cap room. And then they do like one extension and suddenly they have 50 million in salary cap room. It's just like, maybe you don't know as much as you think you do about this.
If baseball fans should have learned anything from this offseason, there's a lot you can do with manipulating how the money lays out in a contract.
Oh my gosh. I don't think anyone's taking deferred money from the Royals, and I don't think the Royals are offering deferred money because of the situations they're in, but still, absolutely.
And you know what? If the Royals go out and do some bargain bin shopping, I'm not going to be opposed to it.
No.
Max talked about guys like Jock Peterson. I wouldn't mind bringing in Jock Peterson for spring training and see what he could do.
I'm sure he's bargain bin shopping though.
Well, I mean, he's probably going to command like a 1 year, $4 or $5 million contract.
You think that's all he's going to get?
I think so.
Well, I thought he was better. Hang on, I got to look him up again because I thought he was better than 1 year, $5 million last year.
He's been
when you're saying 1 year, $5 million, you're saying he wasn't even as good as Hunter Renfroe. I think he was better than Hunter Renfroe, so I think he's going to get more than that. But
I think he was better, but I also think the Royals overpaid Hunter Renfroe.
Well, there's also that.
Yeah. That's absolutely where I'm at. Max also, listen, Max, I love you, man. I could never see a world where the Royals would go out and get Cody Bellinger. I could never.
I mean, he admits that that's like a dream scenario. Like, no, this isn't happening. We can dream and hope and pray and wish all we want. And I'm with him. I'm dreaming because, like, a center fielder who can hit, like, you're going to drop your number 9 hitter out of the lineup and replace him with Jock Peterson. Or excuse me, not Jock Peterson. I always get him and Cody Bellinger confused.
Mm-hmm. With Cody Bellinger.
Replace him with Cody Bellinger. Like, okay, now you're going places.
Right.
Now your lineup is much better. Like, because really the free agent signing is let's replace, as it looks right now, it looks like let's replace Freddie Fermin with Hunter Renfroe. Mm-hmm. And unless Hunter Renfroe bounces back to be like prime Hunter Renfroe and or Fermin falls apart from who he was last year, that's not much of an upgrade.
No.
May not be an upgrade at all.
It may not. And I am curious to see how Fermin does in 2024. He was falling off slowly but steadily as the season went along. He had a really hot start and then just kind of started tinkering off as the season went along. I think the Royals are done adding free agents to the 40-man roster right now. I put together a piece talking about some minor league free agents that they could focus on, guys that warrant a spring training invite, but not much more other than that. I don't know, just the Royals already outspent what they said they were going to spend this offseason. I understand that could be some grandstanding, that could be some strategic messaging, if you will, saying, oh, hey, we only said we're going to spend this amount of money, but look at this. We went out and spent way more.
I can't remember if it was Lesky or Craig Brown that said, when they give you an amount they're going to spend, they're going to overspend it. That's the minimum. Because if you give an amount and you don't spend that much, then everyone goes, why aren't you spending?
It's a big issue then. It's hard to disagree with Max, though, that if the Royals are going to splurge and spend money at a position, it should probably be in the outfield with like a franchise guy. And, Cody Bellinger's had his ups and downs, but after his year in Chicago, it looks like he is going to cash in and be, a franchise guy for someone. Now, do those big money contracts always work out for position players? You can have your own opinions on that. But I think the biggest thing that would keep the Royals out of the running for a Bellinger or a Chapman is both of them got qualifying offers. Yeah. So the Royals would have to forfeit draft capital as well. And when you're trying to rebuild the farm system, that's not what you want to do. Give up high picks. Same thing with Blake Snell. I want to say Josh Kaiser was talking about him earlier on today. Like, hey, this is the dream free agent edition. Add more to the rotation.
Yes, we need another Padres starter.
Don't you mean another?
We want to collect the whole set.
we want all the Padres, and then we also want some more Rays connections, right? That's how it goes.
We need Padres starters and Rangers relievers is what we need.
Apparently so. Apparently that's the recipe for success.
I do want to throw out there that. Boy, someone I'm pretty sure wrote at the beginning of the offseason that we might see a decline in free agent spending this year.
Oh, really?
I think someone wrote that, and they said that, hey, interest rates are going up. Teams aren't going to want to spend on their rosters, but they can leave their money in the bank to collect interest. Did someone write that, Jacob? Do you remember? Did someone write that?
Vaguely. Vaguely it was probably someone I haven't met and someone I don't speak to very often. It's probably who it was.
Yeah. It was someone incredibly good looking.
Oh yeah.
And so smart. And they probably like live on a yacht or something. I don't know.
Yeah. They have to, knowing that much about spending in a multi-billion-dollar organization. Yeah, they better be making some good money.
Yeah, absolutely. So that person, I think, was very on the money. It looks like right now. Obviously, there's still a month or so of off season to go, and people could sign during spring training. But I think a lot of us. Even that person are probably surprised that guys like Blake Snell and Matt Chapman and Cody Bellinger are still looking for contracts.
Yeah. And all the joking aside, Jeremy, yeah, I mean, you wrote that in like early September. Like it was a while ago. So good job on forecasting that.
I mean, I could still end up looking like an idiot. I mean, Cody Bellinger could sign for $500 million, and all of a sudden it's like, I'm gonna go over there, thank you. But teams, it sure looks. Even if they do spend the money, they're hesitant. They're really gonna do their due diligence, and they're really gonna negotiate hard. Is what it looks like is happening.
I don't recall this many big fish free agents being available with a month out to spring training.
Yeah, it doesn't happen all that often.
No, it doesn't.
It does. I swear that I heard this happened a few years ago. And then guys ended up signing, but it still ended up being a down year for free agent spending, whereas we've been setting records for free agent spending the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. And I noted in a piece couple weeks ago that the free agent spending to that point in the offseason was half of what it had been the offseason before.
Man.
So they've got a good, and half of that was just Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, I bet. You take the Dodgers out of the equation, how much has actually been spent on all the other teams?
So there's a lot of work to be done if they want to even approach how much they spent on free agents last year.
For sure. And I am curious if, the hit rate on free agents is affecting that. It's seeming like, I don't know, just looking at some of the big money contracts from recent years, a guy like Chris Bryant comes to mind. What has he done to warrant that contract?
Okay, Chris Bryant, I think, is an outlier from the beginning, because why on earth did the Rockies want him? They weren't ready. They weren't like, we're a Chris Bryant away from competing. It was just like, why? What are you doing? Colorado, we complain about the way the Royals run their organization. At least we're not Rockies fans.
Nope.
Okay? We could be Rockies fans right now.
We are just one state away from being Rockies fans. Oh man, oh man, oh man. Hey, listen, I know our episode is running a little long, but I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the Hall of Fame stuff, man.
Oh yeah, sure. Hall of Fame, that happened.
Yeah, that whole thing happened. So all in all, if you haven't heard yet, Adrian Beltre, Todd Helton, speaking of Rockies, and former Royals killer Joe Mauer were elected to the Hall of Fame. I was doing a little bit of research on Carlos Beltran, who he saw a big jump in his voting percentage, but he's still way short of the 75% threshold required. Are you surprised by that at this point?
Not really.
You're on the ballot.
When a guy, whatever percentage a guy starts at, it takes a while to build up. It
Usually,
does not just immediately go from, some guys have gone from 20 to 75% over the course of their eligibility.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody goes from 20 to 75% in a year. And nobody was going to not vote for Beltran one year and go, okay, well, he's served his time. I'll put him in the Hall of Fame this year. Craig Calcaterra had an interesting take where he thinks that a lot of people are struggling with the fact that they do want to put Beltran in, but they have some cognitive dissonance about putting in Beltran when he cheated and not putting in all the PED guys. By the way, I am an absolutely put the PED guys in there because PEDs might make you better. They don't. These guys were great regardless. So they were still worth having in there to my mind. And there's a whole MLB encouraged it stuff. We don't need to get into that. Anyway, I don't actually think that cognitive dissonance is a problem for people. I do raise it because it's an interesting theory, but I think the kind of people who are going to say these guys deserve to be in and these guys aren't the kind of people who are uncomfortable drawing that line at PEDs and letting someone who banged on a trash can get in.
Yeah. And listen, he had the biggest jump out of all the folks on their second or later ballot. He jumped 10.5%, I want to say it was. So that was pretty good. Of course, we can't forget. Go ahead. Sorry.
When you look at the trends, you can usually tell who's going to get in or not, even when they're not already elected. The trends suggest he will get in, just not yet.
Yeah, just not yet. I'd say give him about 2 more years. And
Billy Wagner's probably, for example, if you want to look at the trends, Billy Wagner's probably getting in next year, which is about time probably. So
no doubt.
Good for him.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there was a couple of former Royals who did fall off the ballot this year.
Oh man.
Oh yeah, no. I was really rooting for Jose Bautista and James Shields to get in to Cooperstown.
James Shields got 0% of the vote.
Even Bartolo Colon got 5 votes. I mean, come on.
I mean, Bartolo had a better career than James Shields at me. I love James Shields. James Shields' reputation was bigger than his performance. The big thing, though, is that, like, which is worse? Not being put on the Hall of Fame ballot or being put on and not a single person votes for you? I think I'd rather them just be like, yeah, you're not on. And then I could always tell myself, well, if I'd got on there, I would have gotten at least a few votes.
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't speak well for his reputation amongst the writers either, because go ahead.
I mean, his reputation diminished once he left Kansas City and he bombed out in San Diego and Chicago, and then this is why they have that 5-year period where you don't go in as soon as you retire, is because then like all that stuff kind of fades a little bit, and they start to look at the numbers, and they looked at James Shields' numbers and went, yeah, that's not Hall of Fame, buddy.
No, not even close, unfortunately. It's impossible to ignore that this whole process seems like a lot of nowadays it's about politicking after a while. Talking about those off-field things and their moral fiber and stuff like that. It's same here, Jeremy. It just induces an eye roll for me.
Yeah, I rolled my eyes for those of you at home.
Yeah, I know we're an audio only format, but that's never stopped us from having, very expressive faces. You would be shocked. You'd be shocked with this video feed. Not for all
and it's not just because Jacob's not wearing a shirt.
Wait, what? You mean your skin's not that color? Anyways, it is that time for us to start wrapping this up. It is time for the Royals reviews, which before we get to it, I do want to shout out Joshua Briscoe of all things, because I didn't realize on his show he had something called the shot clock, which is where they basically do this, but with the review. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but I can't put a cap like that on Jeremy. Okay, he has to. It is in his contract. He has to have at least 6 minutes to talk about Marvel Midnight Suns, and then he can give a review on top of that. That's usually how that goes, right, Jeremy?
Absolutely. Have you finished Marvel Midnight Suns yet, Jacob?
No, I have not. Right.
But you're still playing it, right?
Every now and then.
All right. Go ahead.
Hey, if you don't mind, what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you start off, and then I'm going to switch spots with Kate, who's going to give the review for this week.
All right. Here we go. So I'm going to give a recommendation that I might regret admitting that I've watched. I don't know. We'll see. I watched the anime Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out. It's kind of a cute little slice of life thing. It is a little raunchy, especially at the beginning, the first couple episodes. And then never entirely goes away, but it does kind of settle into this just cute little romance between Sakurai and Uzaki. And it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. It's just cute and it makes me happy. It helps me relax when I watch an episode at night. So if you're looking for something a little cute, you don't mind a little raunchy, then Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out. Katie is being assaulted by her dog, so she can't talk. I'll keep talking until Katie starts talking.
No, Scout wanted to help with our review today because
thanks, Scout.
She watched it with me. So we are full into the Oscars nomination period season, I guess. We're into awards show season. So Oscar noms came out on Tuesday morning. And I have a special poll that I'm going to be asking about in conjunction with that. But if you know me in real life, no, you don't. But but I make a spreadsheet every single year of all the Oscar nominations and where to watch them and what categories they're nominated for and if we have watched them. And so we started ours last night, and then I continued it this morning because Jacob goes through our spreadsheet and marks which ones he wants to watch with me, and the rest I get to watch on my own. So we watched 2 shorts for the documentary short category that are nominated. One is available on Disney Plus. It is called The Last Repair Shop, and it is about a group of people in the Los Angeles School District who repair musical instruments that are provided at free of cost to students in the area. And it was really beautiful because it focused not just like on what the shop does, but on the stories of the handful of people that are left that can repair these instruments. So that was beautiful. It's about 40 minutes long. Please go watch it. And then this morning, I pulled up Paramount Plus and I watched another short documentary that is nominated called The ABCs of Book Banning. So they followed the topic that is very much a hot button issue in the U.S. right now of restricted, challenged, and banned books in the public school system. And what they did is, I'm assuming with parental permission, they provided age-appropriate, banned, challenged, or restricted books to these children and allowed them to read them and then asked them to comment their thoughts on the books and thoughts on the fact that they were banned, etc. And that was kind of their focus, is like, we've heard from the people who want them banned. We haven't heard from the kids. So it is also beautifully, beautifully done. And it was really made my heart sad because 4 or 5 of my favorite books are on that banned list, and not like To Kill a Mockingbird or such, or things that you would kind of expect that have shown up on the banned list. But I'm talking The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter. Wicked by Gregory Maguire, which is adapted into the very famous musical. Books like that.
Why bother banning that book at this point?
Well, so the ban comes, at least from what I can see, they would show different quotes from those books. And there's a book about, a quote in Wicked about how women need cold, hard anger, and to know that they can never, ever, 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 ever back down. And so it's like this quote, or this idea that women are powerful and, can hold anger and hold their ground, is dangerous. So those are 2 really beautiful, about 40 minutes each, short documentaries that are nominated for an Academy Award this year. And I really recommend, if you've got the time, sit down and watch them. They're both very popular streaming platforms that a lot of people have access to. Please sit down and watch the ABCs of book banning. It was beautiful to hear from so many kids of like, I don't understand why you would want this banned. Like, well, I'm just really curious. It's so sweet and innocent. But generally, just a good perspective, very much that hate and racism, etc., is taught. Kids have no idea of it. So when they're handed things and they haven't been taught to hate, and they haven't been taught that, LGBTQ people are wrong for what, who they love and who they are, they genuinely don't understand why someone would want to ban a book like this. And just they're frustrated because they can't find things that they want to read, that they enjoy reading, because they've banned so many books. So that one is beautiful. And then The Last Repair Shop is just a really pretty story, and some really cool people. We're talking, I can't remember, Dana Peterson, who's like been around the world, played with Jimi Hendrix and Elvis Presley, etc., had this $20 fiddle that has taken him around the world, and now he repairs those instruments for kids. And it ended with this beautiful shot of like the LA Symphony, and showing so many kids that have come out of these programs who are now professional, world acclaimed musicians. So please sit and watch them. And my whole topic for you guys, Jacob, you're gonna have to post this for me, is Barbie was like the movie of the year, and Ryan Gosling and America Ferrera secured nominations for Best Supporting Actor and Best Supporting Actress. However, Greta Gerwig was not nominated for Director for Barbie, and neither was Margot Robbie. Margot Robbie?
Yeah, Margot Robbie.
Okay, I can't say words today. She was not nominated for Best Actress, which is quite apropos for the message of that film. But if you haven't read it, go read Ryan Gosling's statement that he released criticizing the Academy for their failure to nominate either of those women and their work in that project. But how do we feel? Like, I was shocked and quite angry that they would have the audacity to snub them in that way, and to, in a sense, try and turn a blind eye to the work that they've done on that project and the impact that it's had. So given that it is very much a man finding out how the patriarchy works and women toppling it, how do we feel about Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie being snubbed and not nominated for categories which they very much deserve? That's my question.
All right. Very nice. I like it. I like it. Jeremy, go ahead and get us out of here, man.
Yep. So that's gonna be the podcast. This is not my usual job, so
No.
please.
Until next time, go Royals!